COVID has been the catalyst for many relationship breakdowns. A study found that 42% of people had experienced a negative change in their relationship with their partner. In this episode of Me and My Health Up, we'll be discussing relationships with registered psychologist Leanne Kanzler. I'm your host, Anthony Harcher, clinical nutritionist and lifestyle medicine specialist. Health Up seeks to enhance and enlighten the well-being of others. Our guest, Leanne, knows what it's like to be divorced after her 17-year marriage ended in 2010. She discovered firsthand how divorce impacted the men she dated. This experience planted the seed for her to focus her work on men. Leanne has been a registered psychologist in Sydney for 12 years. She is a qualified life coach. Leanne decided to branch out to work with men in the divorce space after she saw a huge gap in the services available to men and their desperate need for men to seek help. She recently added for women after several women contacted her to ask, why not me too? Well, why not women too? So Leanne added women to her program. Leanne is now married to a great guy and loves creating a positive impact on the world, one person at a time. So welcome, Leanne. How are you today?
Hi, Anthony. Thank you so much. I'm great. Bit cold today, but doing good.
It is, because you're Western Sydney, aren't you? So I can imagine it's the temperature's a few degrees lower.
Yes, probably.
Just my usual starting question, the listeners are well and truly are clear about, but I love hearing a person's story about how they've arrived at what they're doing today. So can you please share how you've arrived at what you're doing and what you're specialising in today?
Yeah, well, it's been a bit of a process. And as you mentioned, it did all start back after I got my divorce, and I started dating people. I did the whole online stuff, and I saw how much hurt and pain there was going on. And it really made me wonder how anyone even got to date again. There was just so much anger and frustration, and I could see straight through it. So I was very fortunate in that. And I know a lot of other women, they can't see through that and they just take it on board as their own stuff. So after playing around actually in the dating scene as in helping people with dates and how to, make their profile better and all that sort of stuff, it then kind of migrated to working with men who have been in a divorce situation. And that really started out of some of the clients that I had and just seeing how desperate they were with the whole system, the court system, the frustration, the pain. And I heard over and over again, nobody knows what I'm going through. They kind of separated themselves from their family or friends because they didn't want to talk about it, or they lost family and friends out of the separation, because people take sides. You can't really help that. And they just felt so alone and so isolated. They had given so much to their relationship, and now they didn't know who they were, where to start, what to do. And so from that, and I guess during COVID as well, it did get worse, but also even before that, there was a lot of stuff helping women. I saw on LinkedIn and in social media and on the news a lot of talk about helping women, and which is fantastic because that is 100% needed. But there's this other side of me that just kept saying, well, what about men? Men are struggling too. The rate of suicide in men is much higher than in women. Men are taught to be quiet and to not talk about their stuff, whereas women are encouraged. And I thought, okay, right, well, there's no point me just sitting here whinging about it. Let's actually do something about it. And the Divorce Coach for Men was born.
Yeah, when I think about that, because women are encouraged to speak about things, and men got to toughen up and move on. I find that it is part of the problem because men feel that they cannot seek help, and if they do, they're seen as weak. And it's probably why there is more resources available to women, because there's a need that's known about, whereas you spotted that unknown need or the unforeseen need, like the iceberg effect, and really helped to fulfill that gap. So I'm really glad that you found that gap and are out there actively helping and promoting your services to men, because it's certainly much needed. With the work I've done with men, it is one of the struggles they have is speaking out about their challenges and hardships after, I guess years and years of being told, men don't cry or boys don't cry.
Yeah,
So,
which is really such a load of rubbish, just to be blunt with that one. Men are human too. Men feel the same way women feel. The only reason that they appear like they don't is because they're taught not to. And I still hear all the time, oh no, I don't cry. I don't show my emotions. And I still work with couples, and one of the biggest complaints from women is, my husband does not talk to me. I don't know what's going on in his head. And, I get them and teach them how to talk, and it makes a huge difference once they start. It's like, oh, okay, this wasn't so bad after all. I'm not going to get caned or whipped or whatever because I'm actually telling you I'm struggling. Wow, it actually can help. And unfortunately, there are still people out there who can't handle men and their emotions, but that's their stuff. That's their problem. They need to learn how to receive that information as well. It really is we could talk about this all day, and I'm aware that we're on a time limit, so I'm kind of going, okay, don't go off on a tangent here.
I think it's an important tangent, because it's that communication piece that I often see is the breakdown, or one of the key causes of any relationship breakdown or any issue really between humans is communication. It's always there as an underlying issue as to what might have fueled it, or so I'm really keen to explore this communication issue and how you help couples that or where the man is not communicating in the relationship. So what is it, the tips that you can help provide the men that are listening to how to communicate more effectively with their partner?
Okay. So I guess the first thing is to teach their partner how to communicate with them. Often when somebody is quiet, the other person will fill the space by talking. So if a man can, first of all, say to his partner, I need you to listen. And what that means is, I don't want you to say anything. I want you to just not talk. Because if he starts to say something and then he's silent while he's thinking about what to say next, and she jumps in, the conversation's done because he's been cut off. So a lot of women want to just jump in, and they're not patient in hearing what needs to be said. So women have to slow down and open the door for the man to speak. And I guess the other thing is for men to really understand that their silence is a huge problem for their partner. Huge problem. A much bigger problem than them actually telling their partner that there's something wrong. So a lot of men have this kind of mindset that, oh, I'm not going to tell my partner that the business is struggling or I'm struggling because I don't want to stress her out. Come on, guys, the girls know that you're stressed out. It's all over your face. Your silence is a massive red flag that something is wrong, and by you not telling them, it actually makes the problem worse. They become naggy and nitpicking, what's wrong, why don't you talk to me, all that sort of stuff. They might start worrying that you're having an affair. They might start questioning you about that sort of stuff, and it just makes things bigger and bigger and bigger. So to be vulnerable, a lot of guys think being vulnerable is a weakness, and it's actually not. Because it takes a tremendous amount of courage and strength to tell someone that you're not coping, because you actually don't know how they're going to respond to that. And quite honestly, not everyone will respond well. But that doesn't mean that you have to shut up and not say anything. It just means that you have to find a better person to talk to, whether that be one mate, one guy, one friend that you can maybe just, test the waters with. And that's another bit of a tip, is to start small. So start talking a little bit about what's going on and see how receptive the person is that you're talking to. If they take that on board, then keep going. Don't kind of lurch into the biggest issue that you have to test the waters, because if that person shuts you down, then you're going to believe that you can't talk anymore.
So it's essentially finding that right person, and that requires a bit of trial and error. But in that trial and error process, to really start small and then build on that, as opposed to going straight for the deep dive and then losing the person is so really just sort of, as you said, just testing them a bit, and then if they're responding well, then to keep sharing and to share openly. Yeah, so just in terms of this, men, like, they think, I don't want to trouble my partner, I don't want to stress them out. Is that because men have this, understanding that they're the protector, or, I guess that's where they fit into society as the protector, and well, once upon a time was also the provider, but that's now changed. But so this protection role, is that the underlying belief that stops them from, I don't want to stress this person out? Because I see it with my dad, I see it with myself, in terms of, not wanting to share, because not wanting to pass on that stress to my wife. So
Definitely, and I think it's a very unconscious thing. Often we just go, oh well, I don't want to burden other people with my problems. I don't want to look weak. I don't want to appear like I can't cope with this. They're not going to be able to help me anyway. It's just going to cause more problems because now we're all going to be worried about it. There's so many different reasons, but I think the underlying issue really is the old way of men handle all their problems on their own, and that's all there is to it. But very slowly, it's changing, and it's important to know that there's that little saying that goes, a problem shared is a problem halved. And sometimes just talking about your problem, even in saying the words, you can solve the problem yourself. I don't know if you've ever had that experience where you start to ask a question and it's like, oh, don't worry, I know the answer. And it's just, I don't know, it connects to a different part of the brain that helps you to solve the problem by speaking it out loud. But yeah, I think people really have to understand that talking about an issue is not complaining or whinging or being weak or anything like that. It's just being open and honest, and that's a beautiful thing.
And you think about, in terms of what we encourage in the corporate world in terms of how to solve problems, it's bringing the team together and putting the problem on the table, and then getting, people to bounce ideas around with one another. And that's, as you said, the problem is therefore halved in a sense, that one person's carrying that problem, but then the whole team chips in and helps solve it, and, works like a team to get it resolved. And I certainly felt that from when I went through my divorce, because I was too scared to tell anyone, and I was carrying this chip on my shoulder, or so to speak, a monkey on my back. And once I started sharing it with one person, I thought, oh, I feel so much better. And then I started sharing with more people, and then I think you're right in terms of the problem just halved by just sharing it and vocalizing it, and it felt like it diminished over time the more I shared it, and I actually got more comfortable sharing the story. The first one was the most hardest.
Yeah, definitely. That's great to hear. And I think it also normalizes it. So if you keep it all to yourself, you feel like you're the only person that feels this way. No one gets me, all that sort of thing. But when you start talking about it, you realize that, oh, okay, thousands of other people feel exactly the same way as me. There are other people going through what I'm going through. And no one's going to be exactly the same, because, everyone's an individual. But to know that there is grief and loneliness and anger and frustration and, sadness, all of those emotions, and to know that, well, that's normal, actually. And I'm not losing my mind. And yeah, okay, I can get through this, because if all these other guys got through this, then shit, maybe there's hope for me too.
Yeah, it's very true, because if a person comes up to me and goes, "I've just separated from my partner," you know, with my experience, I can say, "Oh, I can relate to you because I went through the same thing," and then straight away we've both shared something that we didn't know that one another was experiencing, and we have that, I guess, shared common ground, which we can then support one another, because when I certainly know what it's like, and but if that person hadn't approached me and told me what they were going through, then I would have never known. And you're right, it's so true about that normalizing, because we unless we share, we don't know what other people are experiencing.
No. And men tend to hold things in so much that it can really affect their jobs as well, or their business if they have their own business. And I've seen guys who have been on the brink of losing their job because they're struggling at work, they're struggling to get the work done, and then they're kind of performance managed. And then they come in because they're absolutely desperate, and we do the work together. And, a few weeks later, they're like, "Oh, yeah, I'm back on top of it. I'm not in trouble anymore." One guy even got a promotion, and I was like, "Okay, great. This is awesome." And that's what really makes me go, "Oh, yes, I'm doing the right thing here. These guys really are getting something from this. They're starting to understand that they're okay and they can do it. They have that support. They're given the opportunity to offload and get some advice and work on their emotions, and it's awesome."
Yeah, it's because I was just thinking of that snowball effect, because you mentioned, that person who, is struggling at home, or, or in a relationship, and now it's taking that into the workplace, and now their work is suffering, as a consequence of them, struggling at home. And I'm thinking that happens in reverse when you seek help, like you said, that when men come to you, they start talking about the problem, and it starts easing that problem. You start coming up with solutions, and then that snowballs into, as you said, like a positive promotion. So it can snowball either way, and we would much prefer it for people to snowball in the positive direction, as opposed to spiraling downwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we have to all acknowledge that we humans, we don't just operate in boxes, which is what a lot of guys try to do. They're like, "Okay, yep, no, that's my marriage, that's over. So put that over there." But it doesn't work like that. Everything, it's like a spider web. Everything's connected. And if that anchor has been disconnected, then everything else is wobbly.
It's so true, and that's how our systems operate within our body. All the systems are interconnected. They don't operate as silos. It's very true what you're explaining in terms of how life is so interconnected, interrelated, that you can't just box it away and just think it's done. It's unless you've resolved it, you're carrying it with you, and it's that carrying the old baggage into the next relationship. And that's my next question is, so if someone has just left a relationship, or just leaving a relationship, what's the best way to, I guess, start over again?
Not jump into another relationship. So, a lot of people are afraid to be alone, which can lead to them jumping into a new relationship way too soon. And my feeling is that we really need to get to know ourselves, who we are. What do I want for myself? What do I like to do? Can I love myself? Can I actually acknowledge that I am important enough to be in a relationship? And so jumping into a new relationship when your heart is still shattered, you've got all the divorce crap to deal with, the legals, the parenting stuff, all of that, that's never a good thing. So giving yourself the time and space to heal is so important. If you liken it to an injury, if you break your arm, you get the cast off, and the next day you're out there, doing weights, there's a chance that you could hurt yourself again. And emotions are exactly the same. If you get out there too soon and your heart is still damaged, all you're going to do is pass on your damage to your new partner. So it's important to give yourself some time and space to heal those wounds, to talk about it, to figure out where you went wrong. You don't want to dive into the next relationship and repeat the same pattern, because that is exactly what's going to happen. It's a very unconscious thing. You want to know that, okay, I get this, I understand why it went wrong, and I'm not going to let that happen again.
And just leading on to that, so once they've gone on that self-healing journey, they've understood themselves better, understood where it went wrong in the previous relationship. They've started to improve themselves in those areas. What is it that really underlies a strong, successful next relationship? So, what are the key foundations you see to a successful relationship?
Well, really, it's about, first of all, loving yourself enough to discern what kind of relationship you want, and to be able to be vulnerable enough to talk to your partner openly and honestly, and not pretend that you're someone that you're not. To have fun, to never take your partner for granted. If you're with someone who loves to give and they do everything for you, to always acknowledge that. My husband likes to cook, so he does most of the cooking, and on the occasion that I do cook, he always thanks me, and I say, "Why are you thanking me? Like, I'm part of this relationship." And he's like, "Well, because I appreciate that you did that." I'm like, "Okay." But secretly, I'm really grateful that he's thanking me. It feels nice. So it's those little things, like, really acknowledging that our partners are there. We are there as a team. We're not there to expect that someone's going to cook for us, someone's going to clean for us, someone's going to have sex with us. It's all about being open and honest and talking about what our needs are. How can I help you? And in the giving, if everyone was in a relationship to give, imagine how much happier we would be. But so many people are in a relationship to take. I'm going to take everything from you because I'm so needy. And that never works, because the other person will feel drained and terrible. And your cup will never be filled. And that happens when we are wounded, and we just need the other person to fix us and to heal us. So, there are so many things that we can talk about in terms of how to make a relationship work. And I think the biggest one is being really aware of what's triggering you. What are you fighting about? If you're fighting about the housework, is it really because you're exhausted and tired and feel like you're being taken for granted? Are you cooperating with each other? Are you listening, like really listening to your partner? Are you contributing? It's really frustrating when I see couples where somebody is doing a lot of gaming or going out, and the other person is doing everything in regards to the children. There has to be a shared responsibility between men and women. And this is not just men. Women do this sort of stuff as well, where they tune out and they just don't want to be there. By then, it's probably a bit too late. But really listening to each other. Maintaining that physical contact, because that's really important as well. Understanding each other's needs and your own needs, so important.
Yeah, and I think you summed it up well. It's really working as a team, isn't it? Ultimately, you're a united team with a common objective, which is, I guess it's going to vary for different couples as to what their objective is. But really, if you have a united objective and you're working towards that together, then it's going to be a journey that you both go on together and enjoy. And in terms of that listening, so, we talk about, I'm listening, but it's more that active listening. So where do you think men, like, so I hear it, I hear it in my own relationship, in other relationship with men, that, oh, you just don't listen to me. So what is it that the female's looking for around listening, when you could probably repeat the last few sentences? Is it you're not present? Like, they think, is it they sense you're not present, or I'm just trying. I mean, maybe it's different for every circumstance, but what do you find is common around men don't listen?
Well, I'll use an example of a technique I use that will explain that a little bit more. So sometimes with couples, what I get them to do is face each other, and one person talks and the other person reflects back what's being said. So in doing that, the other person is not allowed to ask questions. They're not allowed to interpret. They just have to say back to the other person what's being said. And at the end of that, say 5 minutes, the other person really feels like they've been listened to. So when someone's not being listened to, what often happens is that the conversation gets steered another direction. It gets steered to, oh, but what about me? So if someone says, oh, I'm so tired, and then the other person says, oh, yeah, so am I, and then it gets all about them. It's like, okay, I might as well not have spoken. So it's about not making the conversation about yourself. So really hearing what the other person has said and reflecting back to them. So if someone says, oh, I'm really tired, you don't make it about you. You instead will say, oh, tell me why. What's happening for you today? What's going on for you? How can I help you? And then also saying, yeah, I feel the same way. What can we do, rather than making it about me? Listening to the words that are being said. So often people will take on board what's being said as an attack when it's actually got nothing to do with you. So I see that a lot in relationship where someone will say, I'm not coping, and the other one will say, oh, but I do everything. It's like, oh, that's just not what I'm saying. So if you feel like your partner's not listening to you and this has been going on for ages, even if it's now your ex and you still have to deal with them and they're just not hearing what you're saying, change the words that you use, change the language that you're using. If you keep saying the same thing over and over and over again and they're not hearing you, you've got to say it in a different way. And that might take a little bit of practice or really sitting down and thinking, I've been saying for 10 years that I need help in the house and that's not working. How can I say this differently? And, you might have to have a chat with someone about that to get some tips around it. But not listening really is about, A, I'm not communicating this well enough, and B, my person is interpreting it in a different way.
Yeah, it's great because it really depends on I guess the receiver's space they're in terms of if they cleared their mind from whatever their stresses were in the day or whatever, or because if they're not in a good receiving space, then that can really fuel exactly what you said in relation to that that exchange of communication. Because it's like I guess you could probably liken it to their bucket's about to topple over, and they just haven't received that message well. Even though so it's a real challenging one, isn't it? Because if you start thinking about the busy modern lifestyle, both partners or working and raising kids and stressful careers and I can see how this could easily break down in a simple exchange because the other person's just not in that right capacity to receive what's being said, but the other person needs to say what they've said because they're struggling as well. It's like, do you have any tips?
Yeah, choosing your moment, that's such a great point. If you walk through the door and first thing you say is something negative, then you're definitely not going to get a good response from that. If someone's doing something on the phone and you're trying to get their attention, it's never going to work. It's like with young children, if they're doing something, you've got to get their attention. So unfortunately, adults are that way as well. My daughter says to me, if mum goes, she's not really listening. I'm like, oh, okay. And usually what I'll do is I'll go, and then I'll say, sorry, what did you say? So I've kind of said yes, but I wasn't really focusing. So she knows now to get my attention before she asks me something. So getting someone's attention could mean saying, I need to talk to you. Can we put all distractions away? Turn the TV off, put the phone down. Is now a good time? And the answer might be no, and you have to respect that. Can we have a bit of a chat, in half an hour, the whole we have to talk thing, never say that because that never goes down well. So really it's about getting that focused attention, getting that person and making sure that they are really there, present and ready to hear whatever it is that you have to say. And also knowing that if what you're saying is overwhelming, it's okay to say, all right, this conversation is now actually ending, because when someone goes and overwhelmed, they're not listening anymore. Let's continue this a bit later.
I just think it really feels like, in terms of, you need to schedule that time with your partner. Like do you find some helpful or can you share some helpful strategies about sort of creating that space in your diary? I don't know whether it's walking and talks together on a regular basis where you are with one another, and it's sort of an opportunity to air those things on a regular basis, as opposed to, things are at breaking point. I need to find some time with you. You're too busy. I need to book it into your diary. It just doesn't seem right to me when it's a relationship. Like I'm just wondering if you have some strategies around that in terms of creating that space.
I think it has to happen every day, honestly. Like when you get home, turn off all devices, the TV, the phone, all that sort of stuff, and sit at the table and eat and talk. It's as simple as that. People complain that, I don't know my partner anymore. Well, when's the last time you had a really good conversation with them? When's the last time you told them something important about yourself? When's the last time you listened? When's the last time you created a beautiful, safe space to have awesome sex? All of these sorts of things have to happen regularly. If you think about when people first get together, it happens naturally. And then what happens? They take each other for granted. They have fights, they distance, all this sort of stuff. So for a great relationship to last and to not end in divorce, you have to do these things all the time. The scheduled thing happens when people are at breaking point. And I have advised people to kind of schedule it every second day or something, because they're so out of routine and they feel like they're so busy that they don't know how to do it. And the scheduling thing can help people get back into a bit of a routine, but really we want it to flow, to go naturally. And all the people who have a good relationship, they talk to each other, whether it be in the car, they turn off the radio and they actually talk to each other, this sort of stuff.
It's great advice there, because what I'm hearing is that when you're dating and courting, the priority is always that other person, because you're in pursuit, or you want the court, and it's all prioritized around them, and so you're orienting everything you do around them. Whereas you're exactly right. Over time, that you take it for granted that person's in your life, and you pursue other things, and those other things become the priority, and that person, goes lower down the priority ladder. And I think that's what you got to avoid. You got to keep them, at the top, because ultimately, we're humans. We are social beings. We need strength in our relationships, and so we should prioritize our relationships and keep them a priorities.
And we all know how expensive divorce is, and the cost of divorce is not just financial. There's a huge emotional toll. If you have children, there is an untold emotional burden on children. The legals, the anger, the hurt, all that sort of stuff. So if people continue to work on their relationship from the beginning, then they will save themselves a world of pain and create a beautiful, loving and long-lasting relationship. So I guess that's part of what I want to do, is to help people understand that, so that when they go into their next relationship, that they can create something that will be for a lifetime. I mean, that's why we get married, right? We have this expectation that we're going to be with this person forever, and then it just doesn't work. So we have to learn from that.
And so how do you help these couples? Do you have a specific program that you take couples on? How do you work with these men that are coming from broken relationships that need, are looking for their next partner? Tell us a bit about you and your services and how it works.
Yeah, so with couples, I don't have a specific program. It's just they come in and we work on whatever's going on. But with the men, I definitely do have a program, and there's 9 modules. The very last module is all about dating again and making sure you're dateable. And the other modules, well, they're pretty deep, I guess. They really help guys it starts off with the basics on what to do to get yourself back in order. And then we work through emotions and understanding your own values and who you are as a person now, setting some goals for the future, making sure you've got good legal advice and perhaps financial advice as well, because that's not my thing. Mine's all about the emotions. Every module has a separate section for dads. So if guys are not fathers, they don't have to read all the dad stuff in between. The fathers can just read that at the end. There is also some, tasks to do in between, just to really help them to really get in touch with who they are. And they can do this on their own, where they can just get the modules and work through it on their own, or they can do it with me one-to-one, in person or via Zoom, depending on where they are. And I'm actually just about to start a group, like a support group on Facebook as well. So that's very new. I haven't even got the name of that yet, but it's going to happen. There's lots of ways of helping the men, and because I've been a psychologist and a coach for a long time now, I use lots of different techniques to help them connect back to who they are and understand what it is that they want for themselves.
And how can couples and men reach out to you? How can they best contact you?
They can either go to my website, leannekanzler.com, or they can go to Instagram, which is @thedivorcecoachformen, or they can send me an email, which they can get off the website. So lots of ways.
And I'll include all those links in the show notes, so that the listeners can go straight to the link and click on it. And is there any concluding comments you'd like to share with divorced men out there, or men that are struggling post a relationship, or even to couples? Is there any concluding words you'd like to share with us?
I'd just like to really say that there is always hope. Sometimes we can feel like there's no hope, my life is over. But a divorce can absolutely be an opportunity for you to learn and to grow and to figure out who you are and what you want for the rest of your life. There is an abundance of help out there. You may not know it, but there really and truly is. And if you are really struggling and at the end of your tether, or if you know anyone who is, please reach out. Please help these guys to reach out. Suicide rate in Australia is around 7 men a day. That's 2,500 guys a year taking their own lives, and a lot more who attempt it and fortunately do not succeed. And it's because they just feel like they have no hope, especially in regards to the children. If you know anyone who is holding back the kids because child support isn't being paid, or some sort of controlling reason, that's just abusing the kids, and it's not fair. So we really have to keep that in mind as well. And I'd like to encourage all women to really take a good hard look at what is important in the lives of children, and not use their kids, and men as well, of course. It happens both sides, where children are stuck in the middle. There's so much we could say, so much. But I guess the biggest message is that there is help out there, and please take it.
Oh, thanks, Leanne. You shared so much wisdom, and I've learned a lot personally too in terms of what you shared today. So I really appreciate you sharing so much on this important topic of how to help relationships get stronger, and those that haven't worked out for whatever reason, to see them, as you said, as a reset, and to reset yourself and look for the opportunity to rebuild yourself as a person, and to really grow from that. And that personal growth is going to help that next relationship. So thanks again, Leanne. For the listeners, if you've liked the episode, episode, please share it with others. We would really like to extend this great tips that Leanne has shared with us today to get to more people. So please share the episode with others, and particularly those men you know that are struggling post a relationship breakdown, and like it, and also leave a review, because it all helps with us getting the great word out there on how to make a better society around improved relationships. So stay tuned for more insightful episodes of Me and My Health Up.